Okay, so good afternoon to all of you. After for some period time, some gaps have been happening. Means last week we didn't take any classes for you people. So now we are again back with the classes. So we in our previous classes have discussed about variable part, the types. In this part we have discussed all the scenarios, right? So now from today we are going to talk on another issue that is as control statement, the flow control of Java, right? Just a minute. Okay. So we are going to talk on the topic of flow control in Java. So basically this flow control in Java, if we will talk on this particular topic, so you people have the idea of this flow control, because in each and every programming languages we talk or we work with actually, that is same, means whether it is C, C++, Java, anything. The scenario is same, the flow control. This is the basic thing and this is same for all the programming languages, right? So what happened actually? So the Java compiler, when we are going to run any particular Java program, so our Java compiler executes a program or compiles a program actually from top to bottom. So from the first line, so it is the basics of any programming that the execution happens from the first line to the last line. So similar goes for the Java compiler. Now the codes which are going to execute it will be first compiled according to the order which we have written. So line number 1, whatever the things we have written, line number 2, line number 3. According to that, the code will also be executed. The code will also be compiled and checked that whether all the code syntaxes and all the scenarios are okay or not. So if we talk that when we are trying to write some program in a basic scenario, if I ask any one of you that what is the program, so if I ask that what is the program, what will be the answer? Can I expect an answer that what is the program?
Sequence of instructions.
Sequence of instruction, correct. So if anyone, it is basically we have seen while checking, while taking some vivas or externals, that if I ask that what is a program, most of the people say that it is a, means, set of instructions. Not, it is not a set of it, it's the sequence of instruction that is going to be executed. We need to maintain, we need to follow a particular sequences for the program, right? Because if we don't follow the particular sequences in a proper way, then it cannot be executed, it will give us error. So program, it is a sequence of instruction. Now this program, when we are going to execute this particular programs, the Java compiler will execute each line, first compile each line one by one, and then it will be total compiled and then it will be executed. So the Java here provides some statements that can be used to control the flow of the Java code. So the flow, when we are writing some program, we need to follow some particular flow, how these things can be done. So the Java, or it can be C, C++, whatever the programming languages, it provides basically three type of control flow statement. So in our Java also, it provides basically three types of control flow statement. Right. So three types of control flow statement. What are the three types of control flow statement? If we say the first one, just a minute. The first one, it is decision making statement. First one, we called it decision making statement, right? There are some sub part of this decision making statement. We will discuss about that. Second one, it comes after this decision making statement. Third one is loop statement. Third one, second one, we called it as loop statement, right? And third one we talk about is jump statement. So these are the three types of control flow statement that is present in our Java also, right? So these are basically same For C, the decision making statement, loop statement, jump statement. These are the basic three control flow statements. Right now, there are some subparts of this decision making statement, loop statement, and jump statement. So, what are those subparts? If I first try to consider on this decision making statement, what are the subpart is present here? Number one, in decision making statement, if statement and switch statement. There is two part, if statement. Secondly, switch statement. So these are the basic two categories of decision making. That means if, else, whatever the scenario, all the things comes under this part of if statement. And secondly, there is a switch case statement. Okay. Now coming to the second part, if I say about this loop statement. So what are the scenario comes under this loop statement? The loops, whatever the loops we know about, the do while loop, for loop. These three types of basic loop comes here. So first one, do while loop. Second one, after that it's while loop, and third one it is for loop. So these are the basic three looping statements for the under this part of loop control flow statement. Now coming to the third part about this jump statement. What are the scenario that present in our jump statement? First one, it is known as break. Second one is continue. So these are the two things present in the jump statement. So break statement, and second one, continue statement. So these are the subparts, our basic starting or initial stages of control flow statement. That is our decision making statement.
What's the go-to statement?
Yes,
Go-to statement, sir,
that
ये
is
सब में
can
नहीं
be
आता.
the jump statement, which I am talking about initially. So yes, the go-to statement can also be the part of this jump statement. So if I write here in the scenario, so go-to statement is also be part of this jump statement, right? So if statement,
Okay, sir.
switch statement, do while loop, for loop. So these are the stuff. So initially there are decision making, loop statement, jump statement, and under this part of the decision making, there is if statement, switch statement. Under the part of loop, do while for loop. Under the part of jump statement, it can be break, continue, and go to statement. So thank you for the remembering of this go to part. Now let's talk about
Sir.
each and every part. Yeah.
सर जावा गो टू स्टेटमेंट सपोर्ट करता है?
No, Java according. First of all, if I'll talk about the control flow statement, forget about this part of Java. So basically, we have this control flow statement of any kind of thing. Suppose C programs, or just a minute. I think my share screen have been off. I think just a minute. There is some technical issue. Wait a minute. It is visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So now coming to the part, the next question. One person has said me about the part of this go to statement, right? Okay, this go to statement. So if I now forget about this particular part, Java, for flow control of programming, then these are the correct scenario. Now coming to the part when you are talking about this flow control of Java, then the part this go to statement is not present actually. So what is this? If go to statement, Java does not support actually this go to statement, but if this go to, the go to statement or this go to keyword, we will say in the Java, this is go to as a keyword. It is reserved as a keyword. If in case for the later version, if for this current up to the current scenario, the Java does not support this go to statement, means it is in C or C++. If we talk about any object oriented programming, C++ is also one type of object oriented programming that support go to statement. But in Java, Java does not support actually this go to statement. So Java has some label part. So we can specify some label name, we can break or the continue statement. But Java does not actually support this go to statement. It's just a particular keyword, or we can say as a labeling, we does not support Java as a go to statement, right? Okay, so this particular part of this go to statement will not be there for the case of Java. It will not be present. So let me correct this particular thing. So for Java, it is crossed. For Java, it is not present. But for object-oriented programming like C++. So if I write for object-oriented programming, like C++, it is supported. The go-to statement is actually supported. So the thing for Java, it is not supported, but for object-oriented programming like C++ programming languages, the go-to statement is supported there. Right, now coming to the part or next part that we are talking about, the scenario one by one. First of all, the decision making statement we have talked about. So in the part of the decision making statement, there are two things, that is if statement and switch statement, right? So the thing, decision making statement, when we use this decision making, or what is the term, why we have termed this part as a decision making statement. So what is the role of this decision making statement? That it decides actually that which statement is to execute and when. Which statement is going to execute and when. So first of all, if I talk about this decision making statement, so the scenario is, it is saying, the decision making statement is saying that it will be decide, or it decide, the decision making statement will decide that which statement we need to execute and when. So the statement, the decision making statement, under which there are some subcategories of if statement, switch statement, right? So this actually evaluates the control, the program flow depending upon the result or other condition that we are going to provide it, right? So the decision, it will decide which statement we're going to execute and at which particular moment. Now under the part of this decision making statement, there are two scenarios, that is if statement and switch statement. Right, now the if, we know that there are several different kind of parts of this. If simple if statement we can write, if else statement we can write, if else if can we can write, nested if statement, these are the part, but all are the category under the part of this if statement. So first of all, what is the particular part of if statement, right? So this if statement, so it will be used to evaluate a condition. If something we have, if this condition is true or condition is false, then it will happen or else it will happen. This is the simplest term that can be explained, right? In a basic term, if I say that how can we explain an if term, if statement, that if there is some condition is true, there will be some condition. If it is true, then some particular part will be work, or if it is not, then it will not work actually. So this is the simple scenario, simple case of the if statement we can talk about, right? Now coming to the bigger scenario of this if statement, if I draw a particular diagram for this particular scenario, so how this thing actually works. So before that, first let us some syntaxes of this if statement. What is the syntax for this if statement, right? So if condition, so there will be some conditions actually it followed. If the condition, depending upon the condition, whether it is true or false, right? So first of all, if condition will be executed, then it will be go into some bracket part where some statement will be there, right? So there are some statements, and after that it will be closed. Now when this statement will be executed, when this statement will be executed, the statement will be executed only when the condition is true. When this condition will be true, then at the time we can say this condition, if the condition is true, then this statement will going to be executed. This is the simplest syntax of this if statement. So most basic statement or control flow statements we can say, and it is depending on two scenario, either it can be true, either it can be false. The true part will execute it if the condition is true, then the statements, whatever the statement comes under the scenario, it will be executed, and if not, then it will not enter into that particular statement part. So if I just draw a particular block diagram for this particular scenario, for the if statement, if I draw some particular block diagram, then how it can be executed, right? Now, considering this is my test expression or the condition, we can say if this condition is true, if the condition is true, then it will be coming to this particular part. Means it will be executed the statement. If the condition is true, then the statement will be executed. Then after the statement will be executed, then it will be goes to the next part. Now, if the condition is not true, so this particular section will be happening when the text expression will be sorry. So if the condition is true, then this sequence will be happening. Now, if the condition is not true, then what will happen? If the condition is not true or if the condition is false, then it will not go this particular section. It will not get into this particular statement section, or the condition will be false, then it will be go directly to this particular or any other where this condition will be subred. Means it will not enter into this particular statement section. The scenario will move back to the again some text expression, or we can also say it that the text expression will be checked correctly that whether the text expression is false, then whatever the scenario. So this particular things will be happening when the statement or this condition is true actually, then it will be entering into that particular scenario, right? So this is a simple particular if statement syntax and diagram. Now what can be a simple example of this if statement we can talk about? Suppose int x equals to 10, then y equals to 12. Some values have been provided here. Okay. Now coming to the part, so there are some condition. If I write some condition, if x plus y, if x plus y is greater than 20, okay, and then the scenario is like, okay, so first my question is for you people that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are some 5 lines I have written here, right? I have written some 5 lines. So whether all the lines are correct, whether I have write all the lines correctly?
No, sir.
No. Okay, how many of you are saying no? All are saying no, means there are some problem or I have written some wrong. So if anyone is saying that no, all the things are fine, then they can tell me. Or if everyone is saying yes, there are some wrong, I have written, I have write something wrong here. So tell me what is the wrong. So what thing I have mistake here?
सर सेकंड लाइन पे सेमीकोलन नहीं होगा लास्ट पे.
Okay, so you are saying in this particular part, there under this part of if condition, if x plus y greater than equal to 20, there will be no semicolon. So all are agreeing with it?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So yes, there will be no semicolons will be there. So when we are writing some condition statement, there will be no such type of semicolon. So can anyone tell me what is the role of a semicolon? Why you use this semicolon?
To end the statement.
सर ये इस स्टेटमेंट टर्मिनेटर है.
Statement terminator, to terminate a particular statement. So whenever we are using some semicolon at the end of a line, so it means that we are going to stop or where we are terminating that particular line. So if we put this if particular condition and then the semicolon, then after the if condition it will be terminated. It will not actually done properly, right? So fine, this is a particular simple scenario we have written here. Some particular program lines of code actually we have written here. No header file, no, not actually header file, no, the previous statements of public static void main the class, nothing have been defined actually. So that is the basic, right? So I have written some particular lines of code where I have mentioned some if equals to 10, y equals to 12. So if x plus y equals to 2 greater than 20, then it will be showing the system.out.println that x plus y is greater than 20. just a simple lines of statement here. So it will, when this particular scenario actually done, or when this particular statement will be checked, right? When this statement is going to be executed, what is the value of x? This is 10. The value of y is 12. So 10 plus 12, it will be 22. So means that 22 greater than 20. So if 22 greater than 20 means it is the correct statement, that true condition is true, that will be coming to this next particular statement part, where some statement have been written, that is that x plus y is greater than 20, that will be printed out, and that will be displayed into our output section. So this is the simple scenario or simple particular program of a if statement. So this is the syntax and the lines, of course, we can talk about. Now coming to the next part, that is if else statement. Coming to the next part here, that is if else statement. Now what is the part of this if else statement? So if the condition is true, just again the same scenario, if the condition is true, then some block will be executed. Now the scenario is we can do that in the same into the if part, right? We also do the same thing into the if part. Then what is the part, or what is the added advantage of this if else statement? It is the extension. The if else statement has come from the extension of if statement. So what happened in if else statement, that when we need to execute multiple conditions, more than one condition we need to execute at a time, then we can use this if else statement. So the part if else statement, it is the extension of this if statement, where some block of code and some particular else block. So if this condition is true, then it will happen, else this will happen. So we are mentioning some particular scenario here under the part of if condition, the true statement. The condition, if is true, then it will be executed, else this will be executed. So this particular thing we are mentioning into the if and else both part, whereas in if statement we are not mentioning any other side. We are just mentioning some particular condition. If the condition is true, that will be executed. Only this is a simple scenario. But if else statement, when we are talking about in the part of this if else statement, the scenario, the condition is true, then it will execute a block of statement, and if the condition is false, then it will own. So what we want to do something else if the condition is false. So if the condition is false, then what we want to do, that we are mentioning into the part of else. If the condition is true, that will be mentioned in the if true part will be executed in the if section. Now what will happen if the statement is not true, actually if the condition is false, then what will the answer, what will be the result will be displayed? That will be the part in the scenario of this if else statement, right? Now what is the syntaxes of this if else statement? Again, first of all, the scenario is same. If condition, then if the condition is true, actually, so it will execute some block of statement. So maybe here some statements present, right? Now it is part over, this part is over for the if. Now the part, another part that comes here, that is else. Now else, where what will happen, some statement will be executed for this else part. So if the condition is true, for the true part we are mentioning some statement here, and for the else there is some false. If the condition is false, for the condition is true, it will be executed this scenario. For if the condition is true, it will be executed this. Now if the condition is false, we have mentioned some particular thing, that if the condition is false, what will happen here, whether in the if part we are not mentioning any of the false part, that what will happen if the statement is false, right? So if else is that extension of the if statement, where we are mentioning the both sides of the condition. True, what happened? False, what happened? The total scenario we are actually mentioning here. That whole scenario we are actually mentioning here in this particular if else statement, right? Now the same, if I just add this particular program, whatever the program I have written here, just it will be very easy to understand. Let me shift this particular scenario. Now here I have written some codes. Int x equal to 10, y equal to 12, if x plus y equals to 20, then we have mentioned. Now if x plus y equals to 20, that is fine, right? Now maybe conditioning is taking some values. Now if in any scenario, maybe consider this y is about to 9, fine. So if x plus y, that is the value is 19, so 19 greater than 20. It is correct or not? So it is not correct actually. 19 is not actually greater than 20. So why? What will happen? So then what will happen? So it needs to show some output. Then what we need to write? That is the scenario where we are going to write something, that is else. So here we are clearly mentioning that if the condition is false, then what will be the result? What output we can get into our display section. So this is the complete scenario. Means we need to obviously, when we are actually telling something, we need to obviously explain the whole part, the true part and the false part. So this is the basic, or this is the total package of if else statement. In if statement, there is some part that is missing. What part is missing? The what false part. What will happen if it is false? Now, if else statement that will overcome that particular section, that will displaying that what is the result if the false statement is false, that we are mentioning here in the part of this if else statement. Now, there is another part if else if. There is another scenario considering, that is the if else if. So, what is the part of this if else if? Where we need to execute more than one condition. Where we need to execute more than one condition, then at that particular scenario we are going to use, or the role of if else if statement have come here. Now in that particular scenario, if else if have come into the scenario. If one condition, okay, then else if second condition, then else if third condition, and for each condition every time there will be some output. For each condition every time there will be some output. So the simple syntax is, if I write for this if else condition, if condition statement, then else if there are some condition, some statement, then else part will be there where some statement will be executed. And then it will be closed. Okay, so this is the simple part of this if else statement, if else if statement, where multiple condition needs to be executed. More than one condition we are trying to be executed at the same time. So if I write a particular simple program for this if else if statement, what is the means, that will be easy to understand that what is the scenario, how the scenario goes on. So considering the scenario, suppose we are actually mentioning something that if city equals to mirror. Fine. We are mentioning some city name here. If city equals to mirror, okay, there will be some statement that will be executed. What is the statement? That the city is mirror. Statement system dot out dot println. Okay. Now the second part, else if it is Kolkata, maybe else if maybe city equals to Kolkata. City is Kolkata. Fine. Then again, one more the same scenario of the block. Then else part. So consider this is a scenario that have been mentioned. Obviously, the city, whatever the variable we are using, the variable is here city. So maybe it has some values. Maybe we are considering that some values have been present in the initial state. Maybe city equals to some values have been put it as Delhi. So this is the scenario that we are using here. The city equals to Delhi. So that condition or some value have been already present. So now it is checking that if the city is near. So the city already have a value. So Delhi equals to near, it will not carry. So it will be some false values. It will not print it. So these are the where multiple, more than one condition we need to execute. A condition one. Okay, the condition one, condition two, condition three, and then coming to the part of this else part. So when we need to execute more than one condition at the same time, more than one condition at the same time, then it will be better, or we are using this part of if else statement. So when we are going to execute more than one condition at the same time, so that will be the scenario where this if else statement comes into the scenario, and we are going to execute that particular part. Now, one more part that is here present is the nested if statement. Nested if statement means what if statement under that one again some more if statement is present. So bracket under the part of this if there is some more bracket of if statements are present. So nested if means if statements contain more one more if or if else statement inside a if statement, also else if statement, right? So how this syntax actually looks like when more than one syntax or more than one scenario actually use here, how it is called nested if statement. So the syntax for this nested if statement, if I can write here, if condition one. So after this if condition one, there are some statement will be present. Maybe statement one. Okay. Now after this particular scenario, we are going to not means closing that particular the bracket. When this if condition one have started, we have initially opened a second bracket, then some statement one have been written. So this statement will be executed when the condition one is true. Now considering that particular condition one is true, now we didn't close that particular bracket. Instead of closing that bracket, what we are doing, if condition two, we are mentioning again one more condition here. We are mentioning again one more condition here where we are putting some statement again. Right, we are putting some statement again there, and then we are going to close that. So if under the section again one more if is present, right? So this statement 2 or condition 2, we have initially a condition 2, the statement will be executed when the condition is true. Now coming to the part, there will be some else part is present, there will be some else part present, and it is saying some scenario, it will be some statement is present there. So else particular part, some false part for that particular scenario, and then we are going to close that particular scenario. So else the bracket will be closed. So one more bracket will be there as one bracket here, right? This will be closed here and this will be closed here. So nested if statement, if condition one, then statement one, if the particular part of this condition two, then some statement two will be executed. For the else part, some statement three will be executed. So this is the syntax. Then what can be the it means scenario or some example if we can talk about considering the scenario? Suppose there is some variable have been assigned where some addresses have been kept here, like some suppose considering some addresses of Kolkata, right? So addressing is having a variable or value of Kolkata. Now the if the address, or we are mentioning some condition, if the address going to end with some particular values, or it the contains some particular this particular name. So this will be means multiple condition is checking at the same time. If condition 1 and if condition 2 is checking at the same time, then this particular if will be, or if under the nested if will be helpful. This particular section is very much helpful at that particular scenario, right? So more than one condition when we are going to check at the same time, more than one condition if we are going to check at the same time, then this particular if else if or this particular scenario is very useful actually. By talking where we're discussing at the same time, the time is very going to end very soon. So I will request all of you kindly write your names in the chat box first for the attendance purpose, because the time is very short and it can be disconnected at any time. So it is my request. So all of you kindly write your names to the chat box for the attendance purpose while the discussion is going on. So this is the particular part. So for today's class, we have discussed only the first scenario, that is our decision statement, decision making statement. Under this particular part, there is if statement and switch statement. So we didn't go for the switch statement. We are already considered on the if statement. So where's the time is going to be over, we cannot continue. So if statement we are completed here for today. In the next class, for again I think Thursday, because tomorrow is a holiday. So Thursday we are going to talk on the part of this switch statement, right? So first, initially, what we will do, we will cover